Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Argo Bounce live audio show, season 1, episode 5, on this Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. And looking forward to this episode tonight with my co host, Nick Small. We have a special guest on from the Toronto Argonauts, and his name is Sean Bowen. He's the digital in stadium host and producer, Toronto Argonauts producer, and with the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. So we're going to talk to Sean about his role with the Argonauts and his thoughts on the season. And I'm just going to bring on my co-host first, Nick, and then we're going to bring on Sean Bowen. Good evening, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, Chris, ready and back in action. Maybe me missing a week worked out because we turned the ship around and we got another win and are back on track. It was quite the game, and I know both of us were there, and it was an insanely fun matchup, and it worked out. So we're back heading in the right direction. We'll cover everything going on this week, reviewing the game. We get to look forward to our final bye, a rest, and we've got some other events that have happened throughout the league this week, just in the last couple of days, even just a few hours ago, and we'll bring that up later near the end of the show. So looking forward to talking with you today, and as well with Sean Bowen.
And we're going to bring Sean on right now. Good afternoon, Sean. How you doing?
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing well.
Great, guys. Great.
Good, thanks.
Excited to be on and talking some Argos football.
Good to see you on Sunday at the game. And Sean, you know this as well as I do. When you do something that you love, time just flies by. And it just seemed like I got to BMO Field about 4:00, and it was just flew by.
Yeah, it's what's the old saying, right? If you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into some questions with you, Sean. Me and Nick will rotate them with you. The first one I'll ask you is, can you just tell our audience a little bit about your roles with the Toronto Argonauts, and what is a game day like at BMO Field for yourself?
Yeah, of course. So long story short, I'm Mike Hogan's personal caregiver. So I just make sure he gets to the stadium on time and he's well taken care of. But that's pretty much about everything I do. I just take care of Mike Hogan.
Oh, really? Okay.
I just
you got me there. You got me there.
Yeah, no. So, like on a day-to-day basis. So, social content and in-stadium host. So, social content, doing a lot of like pregame stuff with Hoagie, who's arguably the best in the league and one of the nicest people you could work with. Him and I do a little segment. A little segment each week, just kind of teeing up that matchup. And then I'm the lead producer on our behind the scenes stuff. So we've got one coming out this week from our Pride game that just happened. So be sure to look out on social media for that. It was an awesome experience and an awesome game. We had a lot of great fans there, some groups as well to help celebrate our Pride Initiative night. So look out for that. And then, now we're just kind of getting teed up and getting ready for Labor Day and the C&E game. So we got some cool stuff on the way there. And then, like on a game day basis, it's pretty easy. Just I show up usually around 4:30, 5 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. And I'll go over with our floor director and what it is that we're doing that evening. And then I'll kind of go over the scripts and just make sure that I have everything, the points that I want to hit, try to find out if there's anything new that's going on. And then, you know what, I'll just kind of go down by the field and watch warm up and talk to some of the guys and see how they're doing. Cause it's as much as we're just trying to entertain the crowd as well, I'm also trying to get insight for upcoming weeks and seeing what's going on. So it's a lot of moving different parts on a game day.
Hey, Sean, I'll let Nick speak.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a really fun position.
And one thing, Sean, I wanted to say, you guys did a nice piece on Chef Karen. I thought that was great, and hopefully you guys could do some more pieces behind the scenes of a pro football team.
Yeah, we're trying to, right? I mean, it's obviously throughout the course of the season, it's difficult to get everyone involved. But I know that that's something that we want to do moving forward is more behind the scenes of who takes care of the team and their role and how everything clicks. And, it's not as simple as just putting the pads on and going out there and playing. There's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of people behind the scenes that don't get a ton of credit. So I unfortunately can't take credit for that one. That was a colleague of mine who helped us out, and she did a phenomenal job on it.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that up because I actually have a story with Karen McCormick. I actually saw her when my mom and I we were heading down to the game, just heading down the GO station. We were going through, and she was coming back up to Liberty Village, and ran into her. And I didn't realize who she was at the time, but she was full out in Pride gear and had this amazing rainbow Toronto Argonaut shirt. And first thing, I stopped dead in my tracks, pointed her, and said, "That is an amazing shirt." I thought it was super awesome and a really cool segment. And I felt bad that I didn't get a chance to see the video beforehand because I know it was on social media the day before, but I didn't have time to check it out. But it was really cool for you guys to do that, and I can't wait to see what other members of the staff you have that you bring forward. Because there's, for those who are in the know in the season ticket base and are die hard loyal like myself and Chris, we get to see some of those people and know some of them. But I think it's really great that you're working towards bringing some of these other guys out behind the scenes.
Well, I appreciate that, Nick. Yeah, it's something that obviously we want to continue to do, and yeah, hopefully down the road here that we'll have a few more that can come out.
Hey, Sean, I was gonna say
this. So
go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go. You're good. You're good.
Okay, Nick. Sean, I was going to say, as a longtime fan of this franchise, I really think you guys, the social media department, has really stepped up their game this year, and I think marketing's getting better. Having Chad Kelly at that Blue Jays game was huge, and hopefully, maybe one day they can have a Blue Jays Day at the BMO Field at one point too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be pretty cool. I mean, I don't know, the Blue Jays and coming over here might be a little bit difficult, but I mean, I appreciate the compliment on the social media stuff. I mean, we're certainly trying to be different than other teams, and sports it's a lot of recycled content. I mean, you see one team doing something, so like, okay, well, let's try it out. And I think that this year we've kind of been innovators in doing some new things and trying stuff out and seeing what works. But I mean, like we just, we have fun with it, right? I mean, and the nice part is like all the guys are more than willing to spend the extra time with us and listen to our stupid ideas and go along with them as well, right? So credit the guys for having a sense of humor and wanting to participate in some of the wacky ideas that we come up with.
Hopefully we'll get to see I hope we'll get to see the favor maybe be reciprocated a little bit with some players from the Leafs or the Raptors or somebody else. I hear a certain Mitch Marner's a pretty big Toronto Argonauts fan, so it'd be cool to see him around getting on the bandwagon, especially after this championship and really rolling with some success.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool if we were able to get like Mitch or some of those guys in there. I know some of them were at a game not too long ago. I don't think it was publicized or shown on TV. I think they just wanted to keep their space. But I think that a couple of them have come down throughout the course of the year to check out what's going on. And I mean, with the way the team's playing and how well we're doing, hopefully it bodes well across the city, and we get not just the Leafs or Raptors or whoever, but more bodies in the stadium and more people to come out and put eyes on the CFL in general.
One thing, Sean, I'd like to
see it was cool to see TFC.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, sorry. I guess we got a little bit too much delay. With TFC, I saw even Pinball going out and giving them a little bit of a pep talk and a boost too. It's really good to see the sort of brotherhood of MLSE organizations working together to sort of offer that support, and especially with the Argonauts being the most successful in recent years, to give everybody else a little bit of a pep talk and encouragement and pat on the back. It's a really amazing thing to see just throughout the organization.
Oh, totally. It's it's Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. It's a great spot to work for, a great company to work for. Excuse me. And when anytime that you're working in pro sports, it's pretty exhilarating and fun, and it's nice to see that when every Toronto team is doing well and playing well, you can certainly feel the buzz in the city come in an October, and when CFL's kind of gearing down into playoffs, baseball's in its playoffs, hockey season's ramping up, and basketball season's starting as well. So it is nice when all four major teams are clicking and humming together.
Hey, Sean, in Buffalo and Detroit, they have one Detroit, one Buffalo. Maybe one day they could have a one Toronto slogan with all the teams too. I think that would be great. And one thing, Sean, as you know, I'm still new in the media industry, but the Toronto Argonauts have been like great with me. Everybody treats me like family, and when I come down to the stadium, it's so nice when people like recognize me, and it's just really a great feeling to come down there. And I really enjoy covering this team as well as being a season ticket holder.
Well, we're happy to have you, my guy. We're happy to have you.
I'm starting to notice the same thing as well. Just being a regular fan in the seats, people come up to me and mention watching our shows. So thanks to all our amazing listeners here and around the country who are checking us out and share the appreciation for Canadian football. It's fantastic. And it shows what a brotherhood of the league it is, with people from Edmonton or BC even coming in and wanting to talk football, and us on the other side being able to, like everything else, reciprocate it by watching Coast to Coast Gridiron, for example. Shout out to you for watching us right now. People out west being able to do that, and it shows sort of the support we have for the league as a whole. Yeah, we have our rivalries, but we're also all in it together who want the league as a whole to succeed.
And we have a viewer watching saying the Argos are the only team in Toronto that wins championships. City should get out to support the team. And ideally, I'm hoping to get the attendance back to what it was like at the East Final A, Sean. I think there's 22,000 people there, and getting BMO Field filled up makes the environment even better.
Oh, without a doubt, right? I mean, that's just sports in general. I mean, anytime that you're able to play in front of a sold out or next to sold out venue, it makes the atmosphere that much better. And I'll agree with you. That East Final last year was probably one of the coolest, like, not to take away from the Grey Cup, being in Regina and witnessing, the team that you've been covering and cheering for, finally lift that trophy while you're a part of the team is pretty special. But that East Final was honestly maybe one of the standout memories that I have from working for the Argos for the past 4 years. It was just, it was football weather. And the only thing that sucked, in my opinion, is we weren't playing Hamilton. That would have made it that much better if we had beaten them to go on to the Grey Cup. But it was just the atmosphere, the crowd, the energy. You could feel it throughout the whole entire day. Even when you walked into the building, I don't know about you guys, but like whenever there's a game on the line and you walk into a stadium, you can feel that nervous energy right off the hop. That's what we got right when we walked into BMO Field, and it's something that you wouldn't trade for anything. That type of feeling, and for us to come away with that win last year against Montreal was so special, and then obviously capping it off in Regina against the Bombers was even better. So hoping that's the case again this year. Fingers crossed that we're hosting a playoff game in November, and then perhaps making the trip down the QEW to go out to Hammertown.
Absolutely. Yep. By the way, here's a little fact. The Argonauts have not beaten the Cats in the East Final since 1983 at the old CNE and Exhibition Stadium, and that game was crazy. It went down to the last minute of the play, and the Argos pulled that game out. And check it out on the YouTube channel, the 83 East Final between the Argonauts and Tiger Cats. That's when the rivalry was really at its peak, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a special rivalry, like no other. Their fans are very passionate. Our fans are very passionate. And I think the proximity between the two places make it that much better, where it's just a quick drive down the QEW either or to go down there to come up here. It is pretty crazy. I remember my first time there in Hamilton, some of the fans would chirp me and I'm like, oh my God, this person knows my name, and I won't repeat what they told me to do.
Okay.
Yes, I'm assuming that this is a family show, so I won't repeat it. But let's just say there was a couple expletives, and someone told me I should, do something to myself, and that was about it. So we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
They're salty when they lose, but that's a common thing in Hamilton. So we'll take our Grey Cups and drink that champagne out of it. I gotta say though, if you get a chance, and I'm talking to fans who haven't been, you should go to Hamilton and support your team out there. If you're nervous where to sit, play it safe. Sit behind the Argos bench area, somewhere in that realm, because that's where you see other away teams fans sit. Hang out with us. You parking's there. There's a really good tailgating there in Hamilton. There's always lots of Argos fans, and honestly, even the Cat fans for the most part. Yeah, you get the chirps. You got to get used to a little nobody blows like the Argos. The same old chant that you hear for the last 3 decades, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun, and it's really cool to cheer your team on in another stadium. And there's not many leagues where you have the luxury of only having to travel an hour down the road to go to. Normally, even the closest cities 2 or 3 hours away for an away game. So take advantage of that opportunity and watch some CFL football. It's outside of your home field. It's a completely different experience, but it's such a fun way to enjoy it. And I first went last year to both games, and I've been to the first game this year, which we won, and I'll be going back for the Labor Day game and the Grey Cup. And I encourage everybody else to give it a try because it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's not. It is. I think one of the best things about being a sports fan is when you do go to the opposite. You go to your opposition building and get a win out of there, and you just hear it just deafening quiet,
which we won,
except for the traveling fans that made their way across. It's pretty cool.
Hey, Sean, I know we're gonna keep you to 25 minutes here, so I just got a couple more questions. This one I had to ask you, Sean, with you being around the team so closely. What are your thoughts on the 23 Argonauts team so far this year? Did you see them going 7-1 after 8 games? And what are your thoughts of quarterback Chad Kelly in his second year with the team in the CFL?
Well, it's. I mean, I don't think anyone anticipated us having the record that we currently do. I think people thought that we were going to be very good. I think everyone knew that our defense was going to be, tops in the league, and then it was going to be dependent on how well the offense played and how well Chad, adjusted to playing in the Canadian Football League, right? I mean, his sample size last year was awfully small. I mean, he got the final start of the season against. I want to say our final game last year was against Edmonton. And small sample size, and then everyone knows what he did in the Grey Cup and coming in for Hurt McLeod and and ultimately winning the game. But I mean, that's Chad though, right? I mean, he has that swagger about him, and he's a very confident guy. And I think to play that position, you need that confidence, and I think he thrives on people second guessing him or judging him, being like, oh, I don't know if he's going to be able to do this. It's a completely different game from the NCAA where he played, and then obviously in the NFL too. It's a vastly different game, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. But he's come in this year, and he's really taken on that leadership role. And guys love playing with him and playing for him. You can see the camaraderie on the sidelines between this group, especially on the offense and defense, and as a team as a whole. I mean, they're very close net. I mean, there is no big egos on the team where, some guy's trying to do it all himself. Let me use the quote, they pulled together as much as a team does. And I'm really excited to see where this leads to. Now that we kind of enter our final bye of the season, and now we got to run the gauntlet here for 10 straight. It's going to be really fun to watch and see how this team progresses in these final 10 games leading into the playoffs. Absolutely.
Nick, you want to ask the next question then?
Yeah, sure. Going off what you just said, Sean, though, yeah, I think what'll be really interesting to see, especially if they can keep this momentum up going and they maintain this lead through the end of the season. There have been some sort of questions with that really long streak without games and or without a bye, and having to now go at it for 10 games through a gauntlet. It'll be interesting to see who they choose to maybe rest later on, and maybe we will get the opportunity to see someone else who has had very limited sample sizes, maybe Cam Dukes or Scott, get a chance to get some exposure as well, which might not be a bad thing. As much as everybody loves seeing Chad Kelly and how big it's been for the team, there's certainly some benefit in maybe giving some guys rest as they get towards the end of the season into the playoffs.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Nick, too. The one nice thing is that, I mean, this group has really gotten the main part of the travel out of the schedule, right? I mean, so they've done, They've done Calgary. They've done Edmonton. They've done Touchdown Atlantic. I mean, the final remaining trips, for this team, the longest one is Winnipeg, which isn't a very long flight. And then you're just kind of going back and forth between Montreal, Ottawa, and Hamilton. So you're really playing, short flights. You're in and out, and there's not a ton of travel left in the season. But I mean, then that being said, too, you're playing 10 straight games, and it certainly wears down the body. Injuries happen. Let's knock on wood that nothing catastrophic happens to this team, but they're in good shape. I mean, this coaching staff knows when to push and when to pull. I'm not too worried about anything here down the stretch. And in terms of resting guys, yeah, I think it would be kind of cool to see what Cam Dukes has to offer. Brian Scott as well. It would be fun to see if those guys maybe get a start down the stretch drive, depending on where the team's at in standings. But as of right now, I think the main focus is obviously let's win the East, and then we'll figure that out when the time comes.
Hey, Sean, just quick thoughts on the coaching staff.
Yep, true. Focus on the now.
Exactly.
And as Sean, just what are your thoughts on Ryan Dinwiddie and this coaching staff and the job that Mike Pinball Clements has done putting this team together? And I think there's even more depth on this team than there was last year.
Oh, I totally agree with you, CDP. It's Argie's such a great coach, such a great man to just have a conversation with and pick his brain about football. Always very generous with his time when speaking with us and doing things. Coach Mace, arguably probably one of the best defensive minds in the CFL. Pete Costanza as well is great. Mickey Donovan, our special teams coordinator. I mean, they're just our coaching staff, from what I gather, they're just a very close-knit group. Really love working for one another. And Pinner's Pinner, right? I mean, he's arguably still the face of the franchise and still one of the main faces of the Canadian Football League for all the work that he does and how connected and involved he is in the game. It's great to see. And yeah, just in terms of depth, man, I mean, this is a really deep team. And when some guys are healthy scratched. I mean, Sean Oakman sat out a couple of games this year. Just, you have to give guys looks. And that's I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, obviously you want to have everyone playing and you don't want to, tell a guy that he's not in the lineup, but at the same time, you have to give the guys looks and see what this team has down the road. Right. So it's, I'm certainly excited, not only just for this year, but what the future also holds in terms of depth and talent and young guys coming up.
Word I was going to use before I'll let Nick ask you one more question is stability and consistency with this franchise. And I think it can only get better from here out.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think they have the right pieces in place, right? In terms of, obviously locking up Ryan. I think he signed a contract extension this off season, or it may have been.
Yeah, he did.
May have been actually this season. So, they have their coach. I mean, he was well sought after. I mean, this was, Pinball came in and, they had Corey Chamberlain at the helm, and then obviously that didn't work. And they did their due diligence and Ryan blew them away in the interview process. And I always remember when Ryan came in here, he said it was a 3-year process, right? I mean, his first year, COVID sacks the season, unfortunately. Next year, we get to the East Final, we lose to Hamilton. Second season, bang, we're in the Grey Cup, and hey, we're hoisting that trophy at the end of the night, right? So third season is when they said it was all going to come together. You can kind of see it is all starting to come together, right, with just how well this team is playing currently.
All right, Nick, do you want to ask this last question for Sean and maybe get Sean just to quickly say something about his Packers and Notre Dame Fighting Irish going into this season?
Yeah. So I'll just keep it simple and use it as sort of as a segue into what we're going to be covering with today's with the game against Ottawa. If you had to pick a favorite moment from that game, a key moment or a key player, the player of the game, what would you pick for that, Sean?
Sorry, against our most recent game, Nick?
Yeah, the game against Ottawa the other night. Who would you pick as like the player of the game and or the moment of the game?
Oh, Jesus, what an easy question. How could you not pick DeVaris Daniels? That's my guy from Notre Dame. But
there you go.
I went and watched him when I was in high school when he was playing for Notre Dame. He was one of my favorite players back then. He's one of my favorite players now. But, you're talking 180 yards, 3 TDs, this guy's he's a weapon, man. And I remember when the Argos signed him a couple of years ago, I was like, holy cow! Like I remember watching this guy talk, with the Golden Domes, balling out there in South Bend, Indiana, and having him here now. I always try to pick his brain as much as humanly possible playing college ball. But honestly, what a performance! So and it goes to say everyone too, right? Like it's hard to pick one. Chad had an unbelievable game. How about Javon Leake, man? He's turned himself into one of the premier return men in the CFL. He's got 3 returns this year that he's taken to the crib. The O-line's played phenomenal. And even our defense too, dude. It's honestly, it's so much fun to watch when this team is clicking on all cylinders. It's hard to beat them, in my honest opinion.
Oh yeah.
And I think we're all kind of like, as a fan and not, working within the team. I think everyone is just kind of chomping the bit and waiting until the end of September when we go out to Winnipeg and we face off against the Blue Bombers. Like I think everyone's really waiting for that game to see where we are and how well we measure up against one of the premier teams in the CFL, right?
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a home game against them. I think that's one of the bigger shames of the schedule, more than losing a game out east. Nothing against Halifax or Saskatchewan, but I would have loved to have had a home game. But it is what it is.
My brother, his boss is a good family friend of ours. His stepson Jake Kelly was drafted by the Bombers this year, and he's making a name for himself. I think he was out at Bishops in CIS. Really good kid. I know his stepbrothers pretty well and his stepdad. But they're from Unionville, Ontario, which where I grew up. So yeah, Jake's playing out there for the Bombers, is doing some special teams coverage for them. So it is kind of disappointing that they're not here. I think it would have been there would have been a lot of people from Unionville, Ontario, making the trip, down to Toronto to go watch young Jake take on the Argos.
Absolutely. And Sean, we're going to wrap this up because you were great enough to come on tonight. Last question. Can you just tell our audience why they should come out to an Argos game at BMO Field and what makes BMO Field such a great stadium for the fans? And just briefly, what are your thoughts on the Packers and Notre Dame going into the season before we wrap this up?
All right. Well, I'll start with the last part of the question. I hate the New York Jets and I hate Aaron Rodgers. He's dead to me.
Good to know.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers will compete in the NFC North, and if they don't win the NFC North, I think they will finish second. We're making the playoffs. Jordan Love is going to be a superstar, so I'll end it on that. As to why to come out to BMO Field, we have the best fans in the CFL, best atmosphere in the CFL, and it's
heck yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, like for the price of admission to come in with your friends, your family, whomever. You're coming there, you know that you're going to have a great football game. If you enjoy offense, the CFL's for you. We have a ton of great stuff going on throughout the course of each night. Lots of giveaways, lots of fun. It's a no-brainer to get your butt down to BMO and come cheer on the Double Blues. We got a whole bunch of home games here to wrap up the final 10 games of the season. It seems like we were on the road to start the whole entire season, and we were all joking. We're like, oh my God, this feels so new. Like we haven't been here since last year when we were there last weekend, right? So everyone's excited to be back home. We got the CNE game next week. You get your admission into the CNE when you buy a ticket, so that's a no-brainer. Then we got Labor Day. We got to go spank the Tiger Cats, and then we're back home for a couple games. So it's a no-brainer. Get your butts down to BMO Field.
Sean, before we let you go, where can the audience find you and follow you on social media?
Yeah, it's Bonesy24 across the board, buddy. It's Instagram and Twitter. Those are pretty much the only 2 platforms I use. I'm lending my hand to TikTok. However, our social media guy for the Argos, he's trying to teach me as best as he humanly can. It's not really sticking. So
if I can do TikTok, you can do it. I'm 51
I know. I've seen your TikToks. I'm just like, I'm not going out there and dancing and stuff like that on TikTok. I can't embarrass myself doing that.
I don't dance.
Well, I know.
Come on, Chris. You need to add that to your repertoire for your next advertisement.
I think that would be honestly the best thing I'd ever see if I saw UCDP out there on TikTok doing like a little dance or something like that. That would be fire.
All right, maybe I'll do that the next game when I come as a fan. When I come as a fan, I can actually have a beer and enjoy myself a little more. Because when you're doing media, you can't have any beer and you have to be neutral the entire game.
Chris, we'll split some. We'll split some ketchup mustard ice cream or some pickle pizza. Try some of that weird stuff.
Yeah, we're taking the fellas to the CNE this week, so be on the lookout for that across our social media.
Can't wait to see what's new on that.
Yeah,
There's going to be some really interesting concoctions.
Last year, I wiped the board clean from Boris and Royce. I had to embarrass them on the Carnival games, so they want a rematch this year. So
there you go.
We're doing that this week, so be on the lookout for that.
Well, Sean, I'm going to wrap this up because you got a game at 6:00. What position do you play, Sean? And hopefully we'll see you at the CNE game. I'm hoping to be there on the 25th. But I want to say on behalf of Nick and myself, thank you so much for coming on here. And you have an open invite to come back on our show anytime.
Of course, guys. Thanks so much for having me. And go Argos. And looking forward to the stretch run here.
All right, Sean, have a great night.
Yeah.
And enjoy your baseball game. Good luck.
Appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the night.
Thanks, Sean.
See ya.
Ciao.
All right, Nick, thoughts on Sean Bowen coming on our show?
Oh, that is awesome. I mean, it's a pretty tough job having to keep Mike Hogan under control. He's a pretty wily guy. So I am very glad that they've got someone as skilled and expert with so much expertise as Sean Bowen to look after him. They make a really good pair, and it's always really fun to hear their pregame coverage and sort of the keys to the game that they do every week. If you ever come down to practice, normally at Lamport Stadium, that's usually when they record it on the Wednesday or the Thursday before the game day. So if you get a chance to go down and see the Argos practice, you should head down. And yeah, don't be afraid to say hello to those guys. What's really cool when you come down to Lamport for any of the practices, you walk right in through field level. So you kind of walk by everybody, which is really cool. And most of them are kind enough to give you more than the time of day if you just say hello, unless you're kind of shy to speak up to them. Usually I just kind of sneak over. I don't like bugging them. Just let them do what they're doing.
All right, Nick, before we get into the breaking down the game against Ottawa, I'm going to just play a clip of my pregame interview with Ben Grant, and then we'll talk Argos Ottawa, and then preview the game against Calgary, and then we'll end up with the show. We'll finish up the show with our weekly CFL picks, some CFL news out of Edmonton, and then we'll play a clip to end the show with Ryan Dinwiddie's post-game conference as well.
Yeah, sounds like perfect segue into covering the game. Let's start with what some of our pregame thoughts were.
And this is courtesy of my YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe notification. Hey guys, it's Chris Pomay here at BMO Field for tonight's game between the Ottawa Redblacks, who are 3-5, coming off a loss last week against the Toronto Argonauts, who are now 6-1 after their 20-7 loss at Calgary. I have a special guest with me, and he's the color analyst on TSN 1050, Ben Grant. Ben, thoughts on the game tonight?
So this is going to be, I think, a really good game. You've got an angry Toronto team. You've got an Ottawa team that needs to win to just kind of stay in the picture at the moment. The problem is everyone's so tight right now in 2, 3, and 4 that any loss immediately puts you behind the 8 ball. And so it's big for Ottawa. You know, they're going to come out firing. They also probably sensed a little bit of vulnerability in Toronto, which they saw last week in Calgary. And then Toronto, you can bet that flight home from Calgary was not a happy one. It's probably been a very long week for the Argos as they recover from last week's first loss of the season. They're going to come in pretty fired up today too. So I expect this to be a really nice one.
What are your thoughts on Ottawa tonight, and who are some key players to look for on the Ottawa Redblacks?
I think really it comes down to Dustin Crum. I think that's what this team is about. I think Ottawa's actually got a pretty good defense. I think they are less star dependent than they might have been last year. Like last year was Malden, and you didn't really see a lot from too many other guys. A couple of DBs, Sean. You know, Santos Knox, obviously a really nice player. They've got some tools all over, but it's just a really nice team defense, and that's going to be tough. A little bit of vulnerability maybe to the field side. We'll see if Toronto tries to take advantage of that. They've had some injuries, but I think overall, if Ottawa is going to win this game, it's going to be Dustin Crum. He's going to have to pass. I think Toronto will force him into a situation where he's got to be able to throw the ball, and if he throws the ball with a high completion percentage, gets the ball downfield, is able to avoid turnovers, Ottawa is very much capable of winning this game. but Toronto's going to make it tough for him because there's sort of been a bit of a blueprint for how to beat Ottawa, and that's forcing Dustin Crum to throw the football.
All right, Ben, what are your thoughts on Chad Kelly, and how do the Argonauts look health-wise coming into this game tonight? And what are 3 keys for an Argonaut win tonight against Ottawa?
So health-wise, they look a lot better than I think most people thought. Going back to like halftime of last week's game, when Chad Kelly was out, Darius Pickett out. They did lose Jared Brinkman. He's probably going to be out for a little while. But to have Darius Pickett and Chad Kelly back in the lineup is huge, because you saw, and nothing against Cameron Dukes, nothing against Brian Scott. I think there's a big drop-off because Chad Kelly is such a star. And I think you're going to have a drop-off from him to pretty much anyone else. And so it's massive that he's able to dress. He was able to practice full all week, which is huge, but almost as big as Darius Pickett on defense, because he has been, in my mind, Toronto's best defensive player. So I think both of those things are huge. Keys to the game tonight, Toronto's a better team on paper, and they have to win. They have to make sure none of the other factors, those X factors, so turnovers, avoiding big plays the other way, pick sixes, scoop and scores, and explosive plays on offense. They can't allow 80-yard touchdowns, things like that. If they can keep within themselves, force Ottawa to beat them one step at a time, I think the Red Blacks are going to have trouble doing that. So I don't know if that's 3, but those are my keys to the game, Chris.
All right, Ben, and if you can't get down to BMO Field tonight, you can get tickets at argonauts.ca. But if you can't get down to the game tonight, where can the audience find you and Mike Hogan? And also just tell my audience a little bit about your podcast briefly.
Yeah, for sure. And you can hear Hoagie and I on TSN Radio, TSN 1050, and you can go to TSN 1050 to find digital links as well if you're not listening on an AM radio. And no reason why you can't listen while you're at the game as well and have your ears going on or listen in conjunction with the TV broadcast. You can find me on Twitter at Ben_Grant. X's and Argos podcast. You can look it up. It's on all podcast providers, and we do a post-game and a pre-game walkthrough to set up the next week. So you can find all our stuff there. But hopefully you tune in.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for doing this, and I hope you and Mike have a great game call tonight, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.
All right, that was Ben Grant from TSN 1050, color analyst for the Toronto Argonauts, and I want to say thank you to Ben Grant for doing this with us. And Nick, what were your thoughts on that interview?
Well, he was bang on right with his prognostication of having a good game. This was one of the most exciting games I have seen at BMO Field in a long time, and we'll get into it for some of the reasons why, but I can definitely assure you that the crowd was very much into the game pretty much from the beginning to end because of a couple of moments during that game. But yeah, it was super exciting and fun to watch, and let's start breaking it down.
Okay, what are your thoughts on the Argos 44-31 win over Ottawa? They obviously got off to a slow start in the first quarter, down 10-0, but go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. So when you watch how the game went from the start, so Toronto won the coin toss. They chose to defer. Ottawa received, and Toronto decided to kick it into the wind. I think one of the big things that really shaped this game from the beginning was that there was a very strong southward blowing breeze. And at the time, given the time zones right now, there was still a very good amount of sun, and it took quite a while until around late in the third quarter where it started to fade away. It did look like there was some uncertainties about the weather. I don't think Marshall Ferguson wasn't calling the game, so we didn't have to worry about a thunderstorm, fortunately, but there was possibilities of some rain being out there. But a very strong southward blowing breeze meant the Argos were playing against the wind to start the game. And I think what's really tricky then is trying to, when you formulate your strategy, you're knowing that you're going against the wind to start. So you're really trying to limit the opposing scoring when they have the wind. And if you can limit them to no touchdowns, which they almost did, but yeah, what shaped the game there in that early part was that among the field goal that they scored first, Crum was able to throw to one of the receivers who beat Deshaun Amos in man coverage on the deep all fly route, and that kind of allowed them to jump up to that early lead. And then what really shaped the second half for the Argos, I think, if it's kind of jumping ahead going into sort of turning point moments, but.
So my next question right here.
There you go.
Right now. What were your thoughts on the Argos in the second quarter going to a faster pace offense after a slow start in the first quarter?
Yeah, it was definitely the right thing to do, and I think once they started to get that momentum, even in the first quarter when they had the 2 and outs to start and were struggling, and then as soon as they started to get some forward momentum and some deep first downs, they were then quickly able to audible and go into this no huddle. I think it was exactly the right kind of strategy they needed, because clearly Ottawa had certain plays and formations in mind with how they wanted to line up, and it did look like in that very early phase they were their zone coverage was picking the exact spots that Kelly was looking to throw to, and you see them do things like the swing passes or the particular runs to Ouellette that we kind of see every game, and they keyed in on that, but it allowed them to then stretch the field open more down the middle, which Kelly was really able to pick apart from that moment onward, I think by the third drive. And then kind of what really I think turned the game around then was when we had the moment of the call back on the one penalty, the pass to Curly Giddens, that so they threw it from the 50-yard line. It got caught by Curly at the 25, and he carried it down to around the 5-yard line.
Yes.
So in that play, what happened was a penalty was called because I think it was Trevon Tate, Isaiah Cage. He threw one of the defensive players down, the D lineman down, and it got called for unnecessary roughness. But the way the ruling went was that the ball was in the air, and because the ruling was that a ball in the air is treated at the line of scrimmage, not where the ball was caught, the penalty was first going to be applied where Curly caught the ball at the 25, so the Argos would have a first down and get it at the Ottawa 40. Instead, it went all the way back. They started at the Argos 50. I should have clarified that. It wasn't Ottawa's 50. So it goes back from the Toronto 50 now back to the Toronto 35. And let me tell you, fans were not happy about it. I understood the call, so I wasn't happy, mind you, but I wasn't screaming like some of these other guys who were there. But yeah, there was a lot of frustration with it. And I've been to 3 East finals there and the home opener at BMO Field, and I can tell you, I have not heard the stadium louder ever in my life than this game from booing Andre Proulx for that call, even though it really wasn't his decision to make.
Yeah, I don't want to get into talking about the officiating that much because, like I said, you're gonna get games where calls aren't gonna always go your way, but guys have to just gotta stay disciplined, stay focused, and do your job. And like I said, the Argos get to them because sometimes these penalties, even if they're questionable calls, guys can lose their can become undisciplined, and then just things can snowball. So I thought the team overall managed to get through some of these calls and stay focused and get themselves a big 44-31 win over Ottawa. And I'm going to tell you this: people laugh at me when I say this. Ottawa's like 3-5 coming in this game, and now 3-6. I think the Ottawa Red Blacks are a better football team than what their record is. And Jalen Eklund, the former Tiger Cat, I wish the Argos would have signed him. He is a Toronto killer. He had another big game again. I think Eklund had 7 catches for 157, 1 touchdown. So I think their new coach, Bob Dice, I think the Ottawa Red Blacks the record might not be the greatest, but I think they're a better football team than their record indicates. Nick, what's your
thought? I think they've all kind of I mean, I don't mean just Ottawa, but I look at some of the games where they've had teams like Hamilton and Saskatchewan they've given up big yardage to. I think a big problem is that a lot of the teams fall into the trap of trying to throw just across the middle into that. Toronto likes to really run like a cover 3, and kind of they leave the middle open. And in this game in Ottawa in particular was different because you knew Crum could run, so they kind of they would run sort of a deep spy route where they had someone kind of back, not really not really like in cutting off the short pass, but more further back. So it left the middle open for a lot of quick slants and short hitch plays. But I think it was almost a mistake, and you see so many teams who play against Toronto fall into this trap where they only throw the ball for short passes less than 10 yards. And we even saw that in the game we lost to Calgary, because like Calgary didn't do anything in the second half. They put up 3 points because Mayer would only throw the short routes. Nobody has had the guts to throw the ball consistently down the field against these Argo DBs because they're scared of what they can do. And I think that's what's kind of leading into Toronto being able to win so many games with this bend but don't break philosophy. They give those short plays that sometimes look good on paper. They make Crum look great because he had 300 yards of offense, but it doesn't get them into the end zone fairly often. I admit Ottawa had a better offensive game than most other teams against us. They did put up 30 points. And I mean, you take 7 away from the pick 6 on Kelly, and then you're only scoring 2 or 3 more points than you did in the Calgary game that they lost because they didn't put up any offense. So this philosophy has clearly worked out. And I think the tricky part is then if you're trying to strategize against this Argo team, you have to throw the ball down the field, but nobody wants to take the risk because teams that have tried to throw it deep have gotten 3 interceptions from Roberson or Pickett or Peters or Amos or whoever, because it's just that's what really sets this team apart is their defense being able to shut down offensive drives in key moments and limit to just really ticky-tack plays that don't lead to many points on the board.
And they're missing one of their best cornerbacks in Maurice Cornell, who's been out the whole year with a knee injury. Can you imagine getting him back, adding him to that secondary? And then they're without Enoch, who's recovering from a knee injury, I believe, and Brankman's going to be out a while. So overall, the Argos' health isn't bad, but I'm really hoping we'll see Maurice Cornell possibly for the August 25th game, I'm hoping.
Well, nothing against Maurice, but man, with a guy like Qantas Stiggers playing the way he has, do you really want Maurice coming back in when Stiggers has been so good? It's just we've talked about it before, and that's what's the biggest problem with this team. Their depth of talent is unlike any other team. It's unbelievable.
Well, there is one team in the CFL that I would say is comparable, and that's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And right now, the top 3 teams in the CFL are, I believe, Toronto. I believe I'm going to put one with you, Nick, Grey Cup champs, and they're 7-1. Winnipeg is number 2, and BC is number 3, and then the rest of the CFL is up for grabs.
Like we said with Sean Bowen, I really wish we had more than one game against Winnipeg because, especially after us beating them for that Grey Cup, we should have had a home game against them because that they are going to be. If you thought the Winnipeg BC games were crazy with the kind of trading of lopsided wins, I can't imagine what a juggernaut battle that will be when the Argonauts are in Winnipeg. If I have the time and the money, I would love to go to that game, but I don't think I'll be able to, unfortunately.
All right, and we'll wrap this up in a couple minutes. Quick thoughts on the Argonaut player of the game, wide receiver number 80, DeVoris Daniels, 6 catches for 180 yards and 3 touchdown performance. Obviously his best game of the year.
Yeah, I'll admit, DeVaris Daniels, I think on most people's radar was the player of the game for those 3 TDs. I'm actually going to pull an audible and compliment someone who I thought, especially in the first half, fell under the radar and had a fantastic game. I thought Cam Phillips had one of his best games of the season. He got open a lot of times when they needed him to be, and he made some really big catches for nearly the same amount of yards. And I know Mike and Ben were talking about it on the radio broadcast because I listened to it during the game like a good Argonauts fan, which I believe everybody should be. And if you don't already, you should listen to them on 1050, even if you're at the game. But Cam Phillips was probably one of the most underrated guys. It was the last time they had 2 receivers over 100 yards, it was Chad Owens was one of them. They weren't sure who the second one was. If I had to put money on it, I would probably guess it was Andre Dury, Mississauga Football League alumni. Got to shout him out for that. Just like myself. So to see those two guys break a record that's been kind of stagnant for a long time is really exciting to see. Unger made some key catches. The O line was fantastic. No sacks. There's so many, like most of these games, and that's not counting Leak, Peters, Pickett, who looked great being injured. As always, every time you ask me for player of the game, I give you like 12 because so many people played well. It's so hard to pick just one individual who set the tone for the game.
Well, my 3 stars of the game, I'm going with DeVaris Daniels, number 1. Chad Kelly, number 2, 21 for 28, 417 yards passing, a season high, 4 touchdowns, obviously the 1 interception. But Kelly also showed that his ankle wasn't hurting him too bad.
Mhm.
He made one, he was under pressure, and he ended up scrambling and then getting the ball off to AJ Ouellette for a nice touchdown. So DeVaris Daniels 1, Chad Kelly 2. The 3rd star, I'm going to go with Robinson Daniel. Obviously 6 tackles and 2 sacks, and honorable mentions to McManus and Cam Phillips. I believe Cam Phillips' play this season is the reason why the Argos decided to move on from Marquise Ambles.
Yeah, especially after a game like that. I should also shout out Robertson Daniel as well, because the week against Calgary last week, he he set an Argonauts record, and I think he was 1 short of tying the CFL record for most tackles in a game with 16 against Calgary. Not the position you think, a halfback or a safety being the guy to do it. Normally you think it would be a linebacker, and I know it wasn't. It's not kind of the game where you want to set that kind of record, but give him a shout out for that, because that's not an easy thing when you think about how a game progresses and how few plays they have in a game compared to past years. So for Robertson Daniels to make that amount of tackles is crazy.
Hey, before we wrap this show up, I got a couple questions.
Yep.
Quick shout out to Claire Chow. She's a photographer, sports media personality out of Kingston, Queen's University. She did a great job taking photos for the CFL and the league on the field Sunday. And a shout out to Chris Bilnovich for having me there as media member. And he's on his honeymoon now, so congratulations, Chris. And also a shout out to Gar Fitzgerald, who is the photographer for the Guelph Storm, the University of Guelph Griffins, the Guelph Royals. I ran into him on the field, and Gar did some photography for the CFL on Sunday as well. And just wanted to give Gar, Claire, and Chris shout outs on here. You still there?
I wish I had someone to shout out as well. I will shout out all the amazing fans and members of the Argonauts tailgating committee I got a chance to hang out with and celebrate our passion for the team. It was great. We got some Ottawa Red Black fans out as well to join us, which is great. And it's really nice to see the tailgating culture come back in Toronto as well, to have so many more people show up and just enjoying and making a full fun day trip out of it. Like my mother and I, we were there since around 1:00. So well before kickoff, and the fact that there's so many things to do, people to hang out and chat with, and just enjoying our love for football, for the Argos, the CFL as a whole. And yeah, it's going to be unfortunate. We're going to miss it on the 25th. I mean, boo-hoo. We have to go to the CNE and play carnival games and eat weird food and ride rides, and we can't tailgate. But there is something special about the tailgating, which makes it something unique, and something I encourage, as I've said before, wherever you're from in the CFL or outside, if you've never been to a game, get a chance to go out early and tailgate and really enjoy it, because it takes off a lot of the stress of having to rush down and be there for kickoff, and you get to meet other like-minded, passionate fans. So go give that a chance.
Okay, and 2 more quick shout-outs. I ended up actually taking the GO train home about 11:00 after you guys left, and shout out to Alex Christie, Logan, and Rob Richardson, the season ticket reps. They all took the GO train as well, and I did take the Argo backpack as well, so it was nice to talk to Rob, Alex, and Logan, and they do a great job, and yeah, it was fun. And the next question I wanted to ask you is thoughts on another bye week and the Argos' next game at home against Calgary on the CNE game at 7:30 p.m.
Yeah, Rob's amazing. That's all I can say. If you get a chance to chat with Rob Richardson, give it a chance, because there is a guy who has just put his heart and soul into this organization, and you got to give a massive amount of respect to him. I might have already kind of spoiled my bit, but regarding the CNE game, but do what I do. Take the entire day off. Go to the food building and eat all the crazy food you can. Just become, if there's a day that you're allowed to get away with being a gluttonous, bottomless walking pit of food, try everything you possibly can, because there are so many amazing things that are there at the CNE. Yeah, there's the weird stuff that might not be for everyone, like the funky ice creams, the pickle lemonade, which wasn't that bad. I had it after they lost last year as a promise, which you can still see probably on Twitter or X. But yeah, try the Thanksgiving waffle from Franz if you're looking for something that is legitimately delicious. But experiment. Take the chance to try some of the stuff. There's staple foods that are classics that have been around for years, but there's always all kinds of weird new twists on stuff. So really take advantage of the opportunity to enjoy the day down at the CNE, and to get a football game on top of it, included with what's now I think a $25 admission to the CNE. You got to take advantage of it and really use it to enjoy the full day, because ever since I've been alive, I've gone to every CNE game, every CNE day. So get a chance to go down, enjoy the game, and eat lots of food, and root the Argonauts, because they'll be fired up for this game, because they are going to want vengeance against Calgary for that loss 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and we're going to wrap this up. Just mention some CFL news from Edmonton here today, and also we'll get your CFL picks for this week segment as well. Just thoughts on what happened in Edmonton today.
Yeah, so we had big news coming out of Edmonton just within the last 5 hours or so. As some of you may have heard, Victor Cui is out as president, CEO of the Edmonton Elks, fired by the board of directors. This, to be honest, I think to myself and probably a lot of other fans around the league, it comes as quite a shock, because we've seen Victor Cui's commitment and passion and energy and commitment to the team, and to try to do everything he can from an off the field side to advertise the team and to bounce it back in the right direction. And ultimately, I think because of the record and of 0-7, 0-8, whatever it is now, the failure at home, the sort of negative things from the on the field side. What really hurts is that at this point, despite the loss to Winnipeg and the blown lead, it really starts to seem to me like they're starting to turn the ship around. The whole free trade forward movement, which I've been a big proponent of, it finally looks like that they're starting to see some progress, at least. It is an unfortunate situation, and I feel really bad for Victor, as someone who is clearly fully committed to growing the CFL and has a passion for it, along with his family. It's a really tough thing to see, but it's football. It's a business like other things. We don't necessarily know some of the intangibles of what goes behind that decision, but if you're hearing me straight up, I'm really questioning the board of directors for that decision, and I think wholeheartedly that they made a really big mistake, and I hope he finds a position somewhere else, perhaps with another team or in another league, because he certainly has the passion to do it.
Unfortunately, football is a business, and the fact is they're 0-9, halfway to an 0-18 season, and they've lost 22 games in a row. Their attendance has gone down. It's. I'm sure it's nothing personally against him as a human being, but it is a business, and the Elks are hit a rock bottom, and something has to be done. And unfortunately, they can't do anything about their coaching staff with the salary cap. That's another subject for another show. But yeah, unfortunately, it had to happen with Victor, and hopefully, this Elks team can get that franchise going again, because the CFL is a stronger league as a whole when the Edmonton Elks are a strong team.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I don't necessarily think it had to happen because and this will be where I leave off on this. The worst words you can hear as any visionary coming into an organization trying to steer a ship that has been failing way before you come in are the
True.
words, well, that's the way we've always done it, so we're not going to change. That is the absolute hardest thing
Yes.
to try to
Yes.
counter in a culture, in an organization that is already going downhill. And I'll leave it at that.
Good point. So we'll see what happens. And we're going to wrap up this fifth episode of the Argo Bounce live audio show about the CFL's Toronto Argonauts with our end of our segment, our final segment, CFL Picks of the Week segment. And I'm going to go first this week. We got Edmonton and Hamilton Thursday night, Winnipeg, Calgary, I believe Friday, Saturday, Montreal and Ottawa, and then Sunday, BC, Saskatchewan. I am going to give you my picks. I'm going to go with Hamilton in a nail biter, Winnipeg, Montreal, and BC to win their games. Nick, what do you think?
Oh, if I wasn't busy Thursday, I'd love to go to that game. But yeah, I'll say Hamilton, unfortunately. But I hope Trey Ford continues to make games competitive at least, which like he did in the Winnipeg game. Winnipeg over Calgary. I don't see, after how they beat Calgary in the game before, I don't see Calgary having the same kind of turnaround at home in the way that Winnipeg had against BC. Montreal and Ottawa, I think Montreal's the better team, so I'm going to pick them. But I could see if they pick apart the right moments, I think Ottawa stands a chance. Like, they almost beat Toronto midway through the game. So, and then BC Saskatchewan, I will say BC. So I'm picking all the roadies. So hopefully the home fans for all of these games bring some loud noise and prove me wrong.
Absolutely. And TSN on the CFL and TSN does a great job. And I got to meet Kenzie Lalonde, who was filling in for Matthew Shinetti. She did a great job. And I got to talk to Rod Smith and Dwayne Ford, and I'm hoping to have them come on my regular show or come on our Argo Bounce live audio show as well at some point. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on here today. And Sean Bowen, thank you for coming on. And we're going to wrap up this show with the post-game media call with head coach Ryan Dinwiddie of the Toronto Argonauts. Nick, if you want to pop off, that's fine. If you want to stay on, that's fine. But we're going to wrap up the show with this Ryan Dinwiddie conference.
Yep, sounds good as always. Huge shout out. Thanks to Chris for hosting me and listening to me ramble for this hour and a bit. And thank you to Sean Bowen once again for coming on and joining us. It was really fun to have his perspective as someone who works for the team and has a very unique on-field perspective during games, but also big involvement during practices and everything else behind the scene. As always, you can find me Nick Small 38 on Twitter or X or whatever the heck they call it now. You can find me there. And take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy this interview coming up with Ryan Dinwiddie. Take care, everybody.
You too, Nick. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week for episode 6 of the Argo Bounce live audio show.
Well, I got to find out from the league what happened, because I looked at the iPad as Curtis gets it from tossing the guy, right? Well, if there's any doubt, it should be from the spot, then the penalty from the spot. They did from the line of scrimmage. So I thought there's communication I heard from the refs as far as whatever. I'll find out from the league, but I thought there was miscommunication.
George, what did you make of Didi's performance?
Who's that?
What did you make of Didi's performance?
Great. We wanted to get him more touches. Sometimes the ball hadn't found him last week. We know Doubles is a good player. He's big in practice. The ball was finding him, so I knew he'd have a big game. But he came up clutch, and it's good to see that we're getting him and Curly more involved. And we got to find ways to get those guys some touches.
AJ as well?
AJ's solid all the time, but just that last drive, we ran through about 10 tackles. We're on our back end and go all the way down there and kick the field goal and run the clock out. That was huge for us. And, our defense is on the field quite a bit. And, for us to stay on the field is helping out our defense.
You said it's very practice. You try to find, do some job. No huddle, putting that first word. You play that kind of cheat from last week.
Yeah, I do. So that was our plan, was to go no huddle and run the ball on second down. They only had 4 D linemen. Well, they had 7, but they played a majority of 4. And they're a good front, so we thought we could slow them down a bit, get them tired, move the chains on second down. The first 2 drives, we just weren't quite in sync. And once we got tempo, went fast, guys started playing better. We mixed some pass with it. I thought we warmed down a little bit, and then we kept them pretty basic. So we just got base looks, took advantage of that. But we're pretty good when we go no huddle. We'd like to do it more, but I also want to give them more opportunities if we're not doing well with it, and they get a few more possessions. Yeah, I knew we'd be fine. We could have played them last week and had them battle through it. Just didn't think it was smart for the organization, and game wasn't going our way anyways. But yeah, I knew he'd be good. He felt better later in the week, really driving off his back foot. He had a little limp. He got rolled up on a few times, but he'll be fine. He'll use the bye week, get healthy, and keep moving forward and getting better. Yeah, no question. And I told the guys earlier in the week, we got to focus on the process for each day. Can't look in the standings, can't look at the future records. And I even caught myself looking in the standings like, Moncho's right on our toes, right? On our tail. And I was like, that's not what I asked our players to do. Let's just focus on this week. And I explained that to them. That's how I was looking forward to it a little bit. And that's my fault. So let's worry about the process. Everything sort itself out. Let's just focus on each day. And that was kind of our model last year. We're going to continue with it.
A good comeback for you after
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we had bad mojo coming in the week. Guys were upset with the loss, and it kind of lingered. And start off the first 2 drives and not get any points, and the next thing they're up 10-0. I thought our guys responded, and we needed to. We needed that confidence start building. And I think the receivers and quarterbacks played well. O-line did as well. I said the whole offense, that's probably our best performance that I've had here the last 2 years.
Were you happy with the defense's performance, even though at first it was a little shaky, but then they kind of held it down, especially in the fourth quarter, in the second half, only allowing 7 points?
Yeah, well, they had their moments where they could have been better. Absolutely. The one thing I was excited for, when we had them backed up on the one, when we didn't get the run with AJ, they held them down there. And that's something we hadn't done in the past. So, that was big. That was big to give us the ball back and give us the opportunity to rewrite our wrong. We're not getting the ball in there on the one. So, they got to be better. Second and long, we can't let them throw drag routes for drill. And I think they hit about 20 drag routes. That's all they're throwing. So we got to clean that up on defense.
Coach, how much confidence do you guys have when you have a player like Javon Leake who's able to take it to the house at any given moment on special teams?
It's big. It's huge. We feel good about Leake, and that's why we dress so many tailbacks, because he's our main returner. It was big play for us. Gave us big momentum, and it was nice to see. So, he continues to improve each week. He's got to catch the ball a little bit cleaner, but he's a difference maker for us.
Couple more both offenses scored into the win. Them having to kick in the third into that field position that you end up scoring on. How big was that?
It was a little stronger than I thought. Normally it's coming off the lake. I wanted to have the win in the second quarter. I thought we needed it there. I figured it died down in the second half, so that's one reason I didn't take the ball so I could pick the win in the second half. But yeah, it was there. I think affects kicking more importantly, and definitely changes field position.
All right, guys, that clip was courtesy of my YouTube channel. And that was Ryan Dinwiddie after the Argonauts 44-31 win over Ottawa. The Argonauts are now 7-1 and have another bye week, their third and final bye week, and they don't play again until Friday, August 25th, 7:30 at BMO Field against the Calgary Stampeders in the CEN Canadian National Exhibition game. You can get tickets at argonauts.ca and check out Alex Christie and Rob Richardson from the Argos season ticket sales reps. They do a great job as well, and I'm glad to be a first-time season ticket holder for the Toronto Argonauts. And thank you to the Toronto Argonauts franchise and Chris Bilinovich for having me there as a media member as well. We're going to wrap this show up, guys, but thank you to Sean Bowen and my co-host Nick Small for coming on today. And I will download the audio version and the video version of today's episodes to my YouTube channel and all my platforms. And this show will air on WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. Thank you to everyone. Enjoy the CFL action this week, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show. And before we wrap this up, guys, live with CDP Sports Talk, season 6, episode 36, next Tuesday, August 22nd, 4 p.m. Eastern, with my guest CFL on TSN analyst Jim Barker, who's also a 4-time Grey Cup champion, will be on here to talk about his football career and talk some CFL as well. So please tune in to Live with CDP Sports Talk next Tuesday, August 22nd at 4 p.m. Eastern, again with CFL on TSN analyst Jim Barker. I hope you all have a great night, guys, and we'll see you next week for the Argo Bounce live audio show with Nick Small and myself, and Live with CDP Sports Talk next Tuesday. Have a great night, great week, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you for watching and listening to the Argo Bounce live audio show.